It's that time again where I've done yet another 2014 NFL mock draft. This one is a post Senior Bowl 2-round edition. You can actually read all of these picks and the descriptions or the thought process behind the picks in the description box down below. It's on walterfootball.com, one of my favorite sites on all of the internet. So make sure you go there and check it out and rate it too. Feel free to, by all means. A few things that stand out to me now that we're past the Senior Bowl. One thing to keep in mind, obviously, is that things will dramatically change over the next few months. The way a lot of things are being projected or presented by other draftniks and talking heads is going to change dramatically, especially with the combine coming up. It's amazing how much everybody, from people outside of the NFL to people inside of the NFL, talk about how overrated the combine is. Yet they've made it into this big, huge spectacle that seems to matter a tremendous deal. You're going to get those workout warriors that put up these incredible 40 times and these incredible feats of strength and measure out like Greek gods, and you're just going to see their draft stock soar. And that's exactly what's going to happen in some cases. You can rest assured on that. It happens every single year. And sometimes the combine can be an effective tool to reinforce what you have seen on film, either positive or negative. Or it could be a negative where it fools you into believing and thinking something is there that really isn't. Now, here's what I see so far with this 2014 NFL draft class. The quarterback class is deep. While it might not be as star-loaded at the top in theory compared to the 2004 or 2012 draft classes, I believe this quarterback class in 2014 is actually deeper than the one was in 2012. And I know that's a big statement, seeing as how guys like Russell Wilson and Nick Foles were both drafted in the third round. That would indicate a really deep quarterback draft, and it was. But I think this one has more potential NFL starters than the 2012 class does. I really do. And I think it's going to be one of these things that as time plays out, you can see one or two things happen, frankly. You can see 4 quarterbacks go in the first 8 picks, or you could see 2 of those top quarterbacks dropping to the bottom half of the first round, maybe out of the first round entirely. Who knows what's going to come on that? We know that more likely than not, no running backs are going to be taken in the first round. We know that you have a couple of tight ends that are worth a first-round pick, maybe 3 of them if you throw in Safarian Jenkins from Washington. But you would look at Eric Ebron from North Carolina. He has top 20 potential. He may even have one all said and done, especially if he goes to the combine and puts up great numbers, which I would expect him to if he participates. He might have a chance of being a top 10 pick, and Jace Amaro is going to go somewhere in the first round. The wide receiver class is really deep and really, really good. It has both star power with the projected first-round picks, and it has a lot of depth with those guys that you'd be looking at taking in rounds 2, 3, and 4. This is a really good wide receiver class. So if you have a team like, let's say, the New York Jets that is in need desperately of perimeter skill players, namely wide receivers, this is a really good class. You could find help all throughout the draft, first, second, third, fourth round. Tight end class is pretty much top-heavy with 3 guys, and then there is quite a significant drop-off and not a lot of depth afterwards, at least the way it looks at this point. Your offensive tackle class is pretty good. Now, I think when all is said and done, you will see Greg Robinson be drafted ahead of Jake Matthews. I could potentially see an instance where both of these guys slide a little bit down the draft due to how things break out, the number of quarterbacks that could be taken high, other teams having bigger needs in offensive tackle. But I do believe at this point, when all is said and done, that Greg Robinson will be taken ahead of Jake Matthews. And if you call me an idiot for that, I said for several months in 2013 that I felt Eric Fisher would end up being taken ahead of Luke Joeckel and should have been taken ahead of Luke Joeckel, and I ended up being right. As far as the defensive side of the football, in my mock, I have the St. Louis Rams, and no trades. There were no trades in this mock because without having free agency be underway or seeing how that's resulted or seeing any trades go down, it's really hard to fully gauge what a team's philosophy is going to be at this point and what their team needs are going to be at this point. But I looked at the St. Louis Rams and said taking Jadeveon Clowney, number 2, does make some sense for them. They could bring him in as an elite skill edge rusher that they can line up at defensive end in pass rushing situations. They might be able to play him some at strong side linebacker. This would allow them to slide Chris Long inside, similar to what the Giants did for several years with their front four full of defensive ends. And it would also provide them some long-term security in case they decided to move on from Chris Long and his cap number that's only going to grow over the next couple of years. The star power is too good for the Rams to pass up, assuming that they don't find the right trade to trade down. I ultimately expect them to. I expect, number one, Houston's going to take a quarterback. I don't know for sure which of the three, even though I tend to lean towards Blake Bortles right now, because former Penn State head coach Bill O'Brien got an up-close and personal look at Blake Bortles when he played at Central Florida when his boys went into Penn State and beat the Nittany Lions. I would think Bortles would be that guy that goes number one overall. But I think, to me, the draft really begins at number 2 because it's going to be up to St. Louis and who trades up into that spot and whether or not St. Louis trades down. That's going to determine how this draft really goes. That's where the draft, to me, really begins. I'm assuming Houston takes some quarterback number 1, and then the draft really gets underway at number 2. Defense-wise, like I said, the defensive line, other than Clowney, you have a couple of nice prospects on the at the defensive line position. I think the defensive tackle class has some nice players in it, especially those you might find in the first round. It's actually a pretty good first-round class with guys like Nix and Hageman and Aaron Donald, who I think is an absolute beast. I think you're going to see this guy's name rise as you continue to go throughout the draft process. Like right now, I have him mocked to go number 14 to Chicago. And I don't think that's unrealistic, especially once he goes to the combine and he posts monster workout numbers that will in some ways reinforce what people have already seen on film. In terms of the linebacking core, you're really looking at this as a very strong 3-4 outside linebacker class, a relatively weak 4-3 outside linebacker class, a relatively weak inside linebacker class. As far as corners, I think this corner class is a little bit better than it's given credit for. I think the safety class has 2 guys that'll be studs for sure in Calvin Pryor and HaHa Clinton-Dix. And then after that, it'll be up for grabs. But somebody like a Jimmy Ward from Northern Illinois, who I have going to the Cowboys in the second round, could see the draft stock rise because more and more teams are looking for that impact player at safety. They understand the dual purposes of having a great free safety that can play in the box, that can cover, that has great range as a center fielder. So somebody like a Jimmy Ward could definitely see his stock rise as you go throughout the draft process. And guys like Calvin Pryor and HaHa Clinton-Dix both go in the first 20 or 22 picks of the first round. Overall, this is a really talented draft. I think some of the people that you think right now are going to be highly thought of prospects are going to drop a little bit, and some of those second-tier prospects are going to rise. And, that happened some last year, obviously, in a weaker draft. But I think that happens this year because this is a stronger draft, because the talent gap between players 1 and maybe 50 isn't nearly that great. But the bar is higher for the number 1 guy in this year's draft as opposed to what it was in 2013. So, again, make sure you go to the WalterFootball.com link in the description box down below to check out my 2-round mock draft. The first round will have the full pick-by-pick analysis, and then the second-round pick is picks are in the introduction, just the team, the player, and the position. So check it out for me, rate it for me, and I'll be back soon in a couple of weeks with yet another mock draft. God, it's a few months away, but I just can't wait, and it kills me that they pushed off the NFL draft until May. Fuck Roger Goodell.